good day. It's Mark Sylvester here. I'm the host of 805 Conversations and the head of 805 Connect, and thank you for joining us again for another fascinating conversation with someone you'll want to know better. Today we've got Greg Van Ness, who's the CEO of Tolman Wiker, based in the 805 down in Ventura. And Greg, thank you so much for coming to join us. And right off the top, I want to thank you for supporting 805 Connect. The conversations that we had, it was really clear right off the bat that our missions are aligned around stewardship of the region, supporting the region, and supporting the effort. So on behalf of everybody at 805 Connect, thank you so much.
Well, it's our pleasure, and it's a pleasure to be here with you this morning. You're doing great work.
Oh, thank you.
Leading, the 805 Connect initiative and mission, and it's our pleasure to help support it and participate in it.
Well, thank you. I want to, you were kind enough to send us some little background about yourself, and I was really fascinated. I'm interested in the people behind the businesses. I think the business are interesting, but the people who are running them and shepherding them, I want to focus on that a little bit. So you grew up here in Santa Barbara, is that right?
Grew up in Goleta.
In Goleta.
Yeah, I'm a Dos Pueblos High School alum, class of 73. Ended up graduating from UC Santa Barbara with a BA in sociology, and then went off to New York City and began my business career.
Now, let's go back to high school because you were involved in sports.
I was. I played pretty much whatever was in season, but had my most success playing football. I was quarterback of the DP team that won the first league championship in 1972. I was fortunate enough to be, team MVP and co-MVP of the league, and recognized as all CIF, and then went off and played football in college at Nevada, Las Vegas, the University of Nevada, Las Vegas, and after playing football, came back to UC Santa Barbara. Yeah.
Now, the reason I focus on that is we pay, in another part of my life, pay particular attention to people who have a sports and business background. I think that there is something that sets you apart from others, and it is there are a lot of things, but I think it's discipline, it's teamwork, it's shared mission, it's having goals. It's a big part of it is doing the work. You know how much work you've got to do to be prepared for game day, and you do whatever it takes to be prepared for game day, and that's the discipline part, and it's the looking out for your teammates, and it's them looking out for you and being the quarterback and being the leader. And we think that those skills at such an early age profoundly affect who you turned out to be. Would you speak to that for a second?
Yeah, I completely agree. In fact, when I've been in numerous interviews and conversations over the years of my business career, where people have asked, well, what was your first leadership opportunity? What got you interested in, being in a leadership role? And it goes all the way back to competitive athletics and being quarterback of a football team. And there's so many life lessons. One doesn't have to be a quarterback. I have a freshman son at Loyola Marymount who's a goalkeeper on the soccer team, and he's learning a lot of life lessons, as you noted, about being prepared. I'm sacrificing now for a future benefit, being part of a team. Our daughter is playing whatever's in season,
Sure.
Of course. And I think no matter what your position on an athletic team, there's a huge benefit that you take into your adulthood. It is very formative. It certainly has been for me, including the hard knocks that you take and the resilience that you bring forward, as part of who you are, that helps with your everyday life.
So they say what a batting average of 300, 350 is really good, yet you're only hitting a third of the pitches.
Yeah.
And so that translates over into business. We feel like we have to be 100% successful all the time, but if we were 33% successful in sports, we'd be doing okay.
That's right.
Now I want to introduce someone else who's with us here, the sponsor of our 805 Conversations, the podcast series, is Pull String Press. And Patrick Melroy is working the boards and making sure all the technology is working, but Patrick's got a voice in this conversation as well. So Patrick, welcome.
Hi, Mark.
And Patrick adds there's a yin yang here because Patrick's a fine artist and a professor and looks at the world differently, but has a lot of young business friends who have businesses that are contributing to the economy. So he's in those conversations as well. So we will. Patrick will ask some questions and look at things through a little different lens. I want to ask one other piece about your background. It's very particularly interesting to me. You're an 805 guy.
Mm-hmm.
You get an opportunity to move to the capital of the world, New York City.
Right.
Work at one of the largest advertising holding companies on the planet, Interpublic Group, who I have experience with because I worked with them with McCann Erickson.
Right.
McCann, the evil guys on Mad Men, who are not like that at all. I mean, they're not like that at all.
But the stories that one hears of those days, in the 60s, the early days of advertising that you see in Mad Men, there's certainly some themes that emerge, when you're listening to the old
that was
guard.
Not pure fiction, was it?
Yeah, no, not pure fiction, that's for sure.
So what did you do at IPG?
I went to work in the executive development department for Interpublic, which was responsible largely for training and development programs for line executives in the operating companies.
Got it. So So your interest in leadership goes way back.
Yeah, to there. Yeah, that was my first real opportunity to engage with a team of people and work for the senior executive who was responsible for the entire leadership development program that included a senior leadership development program for the top tier executives within Interpublic. I was responsible for carrying out the programs that dealt with more of the junior managers and mid-level managers who were the account executive teams and the management supervisor level teams within the ad agencies. So I not only got exposure to leadership development, but I learned a lot about marketing and advertising from the people who I was working with. And that's of course the business that Interpublic is so well known for.
Exactly. What was the culture shock like for you coming from this beautiful part of the world to New York, which is it's more than 180 degrees different?
It sure was. I loved it. It was a fabulous 3-year education in business. And the level of expectation and the accountability for results and performance in New York is significant, and that was a great learning experience and environment, to understand business in my first real job. And the intensity and the pace of New York City is, for me as somebody who has a pretty high level of energy and
Sure.
and really enjoys that kind of intensity and pace and the variety
Right.
of people
Right.
and
Yeah.
and the all the interesting things that are always going on in New York. It was continuously fascinating and stimulating. There was certainly some stress. I was always broke because New York is expensive and I wasn't making
Sure.
a lot of money at the time, but I had a great time and it was a fabulous experience.
So what got you back to the 805?
Well, I started thinking about what the future might look like, as I learned, from the people who I was getting to know and experience New York, what raising a family might be like in either in Manhattan or out in the suburbs, and what that lifestyle was like, as opposed to the lifestyle I was familiar with, and growing up here in California. And I knew at that point that I wanted to get back to California, and I also became interested in having a little bit more control of my destiny, so to speak, in terms of the money I was going to make if I worked hard and succeeded well, and at that point became very interested in getting into sales, and so I began networking, with
Sure.
contacts that I had in California and through family members and so forth, and ended up falling into an insurance brokerage career in Northern California.
And what did you? So what? I'm really interested in the turns that our lives take. As a phone call, it was something that, you didn't go to UCSB to study how to be an insurance guy. I'm
Right.
curious, maybe another conversation, but what was it at UCSB that got you into leadership development? But let's stay on the insurance.
Sure.
So you get on that insurance piece, and what was it that captivated you? Because you said yes, someone made you this promise of this young man, you come here and work, and this is going to be a great career for you. What was the promise?
Well, it was the vision that if you were able to succeed in what I fell into and wanted to pursue was commercial insurance, business to business insurance, which, by the way, when I was growing up and even a student at UC Santa Barbara, didn't even know that opportunity existed, that was a career path.
That people
that was
did
possible.
that, yeah.
And so as I learned more about it, from the the networking and the conversations that I had on the way to making the big move, what was appealing was the opportunity to be very financially successful if I did well, based on my talents and energy, and also because there was a lot of real interesting diversity in all of the analysis and the difference between businesses that I would be working with. And so, I have a fairly curious intellect, and I'm still, very, turned on by the differences between businesses and what makes them tick, even within industry segments that are similar. There are so many things, including culture, driven by leadership and business practices and differences in the way people do their business. Even with common industry segments, there's a wide variety of ways that businesses pursue their opportunities, their markets, their talent, deal with risk, and so those were the sorts of things that I was people helped me to see and that I embraced, and it continues to be very interesting to me. More these days, I'm more in the leadership role than I am in the risk management, risk advisory role that our team is involved in. But I still get involved in the sales process, the business development process, advising clients, often on culture and leadership issues, and so those things, are I think they're highly important personally, and I believe that there's a high correlation between the results and the output that is generated by a business and the culture and the leadership that is driving all of that.
Hey, Greg, describe to me that situation of culture and leadership, like an example of like how you would address that, or how that came up, or how you dealt with when you say that culture and leadership. What for somebody outside of the circle, what's that mean?
Sure. An example would be, and this is from the insurance, as we come into a conversation with a potential client, it's usually because they have a situation they want to solve for. For example, they're having a lot of workers' comp claims, and so when we dig into where are these? What kind of claims? Where are they coming from? Generally, what we find is that there are issues related to safety culture, accountability, for training and how people collaborate to get things done. Whether it's do they have at the very top of the organization a culture that really promotes a safe work environment and takes care of its people. There's certainly, in my view, a correlation between, claims that occur that are somewhat frequent. There's always the odd, accident. But if a business, for example, is running into frequent claims of a certain nature, that points to an area where we've got essentially for the business a performance problem. Often it relates back to the focus of leadership on dealing with that issue and addressing it, in various ways, and it does come back to leadership and culture ultimately. In claims performance, for example.
So what's interesting here, and part of what 805 Connect is about is a catalyst for conversation, and we're students of something we call relationship economics. And what I heard is that your approach is less transactional and more about a relationship, and you have an understanding of that business and where that business is going. And when you have the data's telling you, hey, we've got a lot of claims in this area, you look at the causal chain of that and
Absolutely.
say, oh, there's this culture thing. And I wouldn't have ever thought that my insurance agency paid attention in that regard. So the question then is, what's the observable behavior then once you know that? Back to the business owner, do you have educational programs? How do you get them to shift the culture or to take a leadership class, for instance?
Sure. There's an array of ways that we make recommendations and provide resources. And to your point, the approach is far more consultative that we model than transactional. We position ourselves, and when we're doing our job at its highest level, we are risk advisors and benefits consultants. And to use the doctor's metaphor, we diagnose before we prescribe. And so there's a lot of discovery that goes on to really understand not only the nature of the claims and the frequency and all that kind of stuff that may be going on, but what the broader mission and objectives of the business are, what their broader issues are, what they're trying to accomplish in order to succeed, and often in that discovery process, we learn things that we can point out to a business owner that they haven't even thought of, that help them become a better business, more competitive in their industry. And in the process, we help them reduce their insurance costs, through that process. Some of that is providing our team of people to do on-site training. We do safety training. We run seminars on a regular basis in our Ventura office, for example, that our clients send their teams to.
Oh.
We go out to their sites with our experts and conduct training programs on a regular basis. In various material handling or whatever it is about safety that they need to do. We do safety certifications, and then often our risk advisors and I will consult with the senior leaders about how to think about either acquiring the right people and getting the right people in the seats, or broader training issues that may help people understand their broader role in the matter. If it's supervisory training, for example, how to be more effective at coaching and training, and sometimes we bring in third-party resources. There's a host of ways that we potentially provide advice to a client to address those things that may be at issue in their company.
Couple of questions come up. One, part of what 805 Connect is designed to do is to become a way so people know who's doing what with whom. The Santa Barbara Foundation loves to say that. Let's at least figure out that. And when there are opportunities for businesses to learn, if they want to burn the calories to go to an event and learn about these things, are the events that you do, do you ever do them where they're open to the public, or are they just for your clients?
We do them for the public and for customers, and it's periodic. The internal seminars are available to the general public, and for example, the safety seminars that we run in Ventura on a regular basis, they're open to clients and non-clients. And we promote those on our website. We have a calendar of those safety seminars that people can take advantage of. For example, often depending on the issue, we will have a broader topic like the Affordable Care Act and how to control,
that's a big one.
How to deal with the administrative requirements to avoid penalties, and how to be more effective in the way that you manage the cost of employee benefits in an environment that is increasingly complex. And we have a program we've done where we bring in our wellness practice leader who's
Oh.
our team member to do programs in large groups for clients and non-clients to talk about Affordable Care Act, the impact of wellness as a risk management tool on the claim side of employee benefits, for example, and all the issues related to employee engagement that affect
So what is so I'm
that,
gonna
that, that affect all of that.
so we play a game here on 805 Conversations called Buzzword Bingo, and
Did you just fill up your card with a few while I was speaking?
well, no. What's interesting is we all use language and we all use it differently, and language is at the root of our culture. It's what keeps us together. You said employee engagement, and when I was watching you say it, I knew that there was a whole 30 minutes behind that word.
At least.
I could tell. And
I'm pretty passionate about it, and so are our team.
so what does that look like in your world?
Well, for our own team, it's a big deal because, I, as the CEO and the leadership team, including the supervisors, managers, and branch managers and executive team, we have a strong belief that there is a big correlation between the extent to which people are energized about their job
Sure.
and the way that our customers experience them.
Yeah.
That is our brand. Is service and advice. So our brand isn't just what's up on our website or in our nice glossy propaganda. It's really how our clients experience our team. And engaged employees, are far more apt to provide a great customer experience. Because they have energy, they're excited about their work, they understand the mission, they understand the real, profound impact that their work can have on someone who needs protection, and how damaging it can be if they don't have it when the catastrophe occurs, for example, or the right benefit plan if their child is ill and they can't get the proper coverage,
Sure.
or access to the providers that they need. Those kinds of problems we solve all the time, and our people are very passionate about it. And so some of that is, selecting the right kind of people, and
Yep.
then it's surrounding
Yep.
themselves with a culture that supports that engagement in a variety of ways, including training them and helping them to see the bigger picture and providing them a career path that gives them career growth, learning opportunities.
How many people work at Tolman Wiker?
We have 105 in Ventura.
Wow.
We have almost 40 people in Santa Maria and 20 people in Bakersfield. So,
Wow.
about 170 people, thereabouts in total.
So you
team
cover
member
a
population.
large part of the 805.
Oh, we do, absolutely. Yeah, we have a lot of clients in the 805 and clients throughout California and the West. But the predominant locus concentration of our relationships is really in a fairly concise geographic radius that is definitely the 805 and the counties that are contiguous to the 805.
So engagement of your employees, they're engaged, they carry this message of service and advice out. Your brand is what they say about you when you leave the room.
Exactly.
And so you want, that. So I get that. I also heard you talk about how you are helping your clients through this consulting and advice as it relates to culture and leadership. Employee engagement is a big part of culture. How does your feeling of engagement transcend outside of the company and do you talk about engagement with a business person? If the data is showing you, wow, if these people were more engaged, we'd have less of these claims.
You bet.
Is there a direct line there?
You bet. And often, because employee claims show up as work-related injuries or leave of absence through stress, or there's stress claims that occur, where people for whatever reason may go out on a stress leave. It's a workers' comp claim. So workers' comp claims, workers' compensation being that insurance that's required if you're employing team members. It's required by law. So workers' comp claims are team member claims that show up as work-related injuries, and there's a variety of them, and so that's where we see the impact of culture and engagement, and And in the conversations with business leaders, we often find that not only are they concerned with the work-related claims they're having, but the extent to which people are, kind of present, when they're working. And we can link that back often to the extent that people are paying attention to what they're doing or not, which may lead to a workers' comp injury because they weren't lifting properly, they weren't kind of operating with attention to what they're doing, for example. So that level of engagement is central often to the conversation about workers' compensation claims and the costs of insurance for workers' comp.
So let's shift a little bit. There's in the 805, we've got 52% of the businesses that we're tracking right now are less than 4 people, and then we go all the way up to thousands and thousands
the
of
Amgens
employees.
and
Exactly. So we have a little bit of everything, and we were talking about risk and business risk, and as an entrepreneur, I think risk looks to me like, am I going to get that deal? Am I going to get that funding? Is that project going to get done on time? Are we going to make our deadline? All of those kinds of things. And you're in the business of managing risk, right?
Helping our clients to manage it, really. We help them to manage it. Part of that is educating. We're in essence teaching through the discovery process and then the recommendations that we come forward with. We're in essence identifying the kinds of things that present risk in the business sense, the business context, risk to a business. Some of them are the hazard risks, like is your building properly insured if it burns down, or do you have the proper liability limits if one of your drivers, gets in an auto accident, those kinds of things. Those are what we call hazard risks. But the things that keep business owners up at night, and often, they're not even aware that these things can really bite them or even destroy their business, are things that we call business operational risks or even the strategic risks.
Oh, really? Give me an example of that.
Broader, set of risks that insurance often isn't the best way to deal with those. For example, an operational risk might be global supply chain management. That's also a strategic risk. A lot of even entrepreneurs and certainly mid-sized businesses are getting their inventory or their product, either finished goods or components of goods, from overseas locations.
Right.
There's a lot of
that in the area.
Global economy. We're on the edge of the Pacific Rim. If you've got a sole supplier relationship for an important component of your business, and witness the tsunami, that hit after the earthquakes in Japan, and it shut down some of the major auto manufacturers for quite some time because the components were being made in that particular part of the world, and they couldn't get it into their finished product, and so we help people identify the possibility of a risk like that.
How do they mitigate it?
Well, some of it is having contingency plan for where they would get alternative supply, for example. In some cases, it's not easy to mitigate it, but it's at least it starts with identifying the risks, quantifying the impact, and then prioritizing what you can and how to deal with those risks. Some of it's preventing, and some of it's reducing, and some of it's transferring risk to someone else through an agreement or a contract. And then even understanding the risks that you have and figuring out if you want to assume them or you want to transfer it to an insurance policy in exchange for a policy premium. So some of the things that, beyond global supply chain would be things like disaster recovery, for example, which any business can experience a disaster. And even if the insurance policy performs properly, the Department of Labor tells us that almost half of the businesses who suffer a disaster 2 years later aren't back in business and often will never be back in business because the things that they didn't account for were the loss of key employees or the loss of their customers during the period when they're getting back up and running. And so if you don't have if Tolman and Wiker, for example, didn't have an effective disaster recovery plan, and our customers, were compromised, if we suffered a disaster and they couldn't receive, the service, it's a big deal for us to be properly protected in case of that, unfortunate eventuality. That would result in loss of customers. And so, often risk has this cascading effect that is not just the initial event, it's then the ripple out of consequences, the loss of customers, the loss of revenue when you're trying to get back up in business, the loss of reputation that one suffers, through, an event that compromises customer relationship. And then there's the emerging risks, like data security. Right, the top of the news yesterday. The U.S. government, believes that Chinese hackers have, gotten into, the government database. Everybody, heard about Target and Home Depot, and there was a host of risk management issues that exposed. Where, in Target's case, the HVAC contractor who was hooked into Target's payroll system to expedite payments for the work the HVAC contractor was doing in a particular location, because the hack came in through the HVAC contractor. All of Target's customer data was sitting in the same bucket along with their payroll. And from a risk management perspective, the IT pros that came in fact, we understand that the recommendation was made before the event occurred, and that's why I think people got fired. Because one of the easiest ways to prevent that sort of an event is to segregate your data. And have a good solid wall in between.
That's called a Chinese wall.
A Chinese wall, that's right. And so that's an example of an emerging risk, which every business has, even the small ones.
Sure.
We talk to people all the time who say, well, I don't think I need to buy, cyber liability insurance. And we explore, well, tell us about the extent of your, data security protection and what data you have, how you're protecting it, and how you're protecting, how you're mitigating, the possibility that some sophisticated hacker is going to get in and and cause you problems. And there's a ripple effect of all of it.
Let's go down that path, because that's interesting. I think we're all Patrick, you had a question.
Well, I was just going to say, like when you were talking about culture and leadership, UPS had the same problem with an accountant taking home all of their user contacts on a couple hard drives because they needed to do the work at home to keep up with the pace that was going on in the accounting department. And so that also sounds exactly like something you guys would step in and say, why is it all in the same bucket? That's obviously a strategic mistake, but also, are your employees, being handled in the best ways through leadership so that they're not feeling like they have to shortcut?
Yeah, and the whole issue of mobile devices, which are obviously creates, there's a host of benefits and a host of risks associated with it. And one of the big data security issues for most companies these days is employees with mobile devices, whether it's the laptop that has the data on it or access to your system that has customer data or your proprietary information on it, and then there's, in our, new world of social media, the reputational risk that comes from employees out on social media identifying themselves as a team member of your company and doing something, that they and your company, suffer a reputational hit over. And that happens all the time too.
You can't insure against that though, can you?
Well, no. And see, that's a risk. That's a very real risk. And our advice to a client would be to, prevent it and mitigate it to the greatest extent possible, through helping people understand, the risk and having rules about, how we engage, and having a social media policy that at least establishes boundaries and guidelines and consequences, if people, aren't wise about the way they, handle their social media activities.
Do companies is there an insurance product that would protect my company. So I've got a software company. Well, we run 805 Connect, and we have we on purpose do not collect financial information.
Right.
Because I don't ever want that to get out. And we've gone through all of the kind of forensic IT audits and all of that, because we've got clients, we've got government clients, we've got NASA as a client, the White House as a client. So data protection's a big deal for us.
Big deal.
But I never thought about liability insurance specifically if the data was stolen. So talk to me about that. That's got to be an evolving new line of products, is it?
Very much so. In fact, the insurance marketplace evolves in response to emerging risks or the way that regulations require them to respond often. But data security is an area where the insurance marketplace is running at 100 miles an hour to stay up with all of the ways that a company can suffer an economic loss through a data breach.
Right.
There's the cost of restoring the data, okay, or and then there's the cost of informing all of the customers, that the data is out there and has been breached, and then there's coverage. There's layers and coverage parts in the current cyber risk coverage that cover a host of liabilities that one may have for media liability, for example, or the unfortunate consequence of somebody using that data to then go defraud the customer whose credit card number you have in your possession.
So a company could, if they weren't protected, could easily go bankrupt with just a few lawsuits against them.
Well, that's certainly a risk, absolutely. And one of the key features of liability coverage generally, whether it's general liability, auto liability, professional liability, is the way in which that coverage responds with defense against a lawsuit. Which obviously precedes a settlement or a trial, and so just the defense costs alone to deal with a liability suit or a string of civil suits can put a real it can really hurt a business.
Well, not to discount even the fees for the communication professional you need to bring in to help talk your way out of that.
Yeah,
right.
It's a significant. It's an issue that continues to data security issue and the ramifications, including reputation. Is a huge emerging risk
that could be a brand killer.
It can. It absolutely can. And so. It's an ever-evolving area of our practice and a risk for businesses at all levels. It simply isn't going away.
Here at 805 Conversations, I'm really intrigued with the questions that don't get asked of businesses and the interactions that you have. And you've just met a business owner. You've had a great conversation. We felt it was fantastic. You went through your discovery process. What's the one question that they typically don't ask you, and when you leave, you're like, I thought they were going to ask me that, and you were waiting for them to ask you, and they didn't?
I'll have to think about that. We try and be pretty thorough, with our discovery, and we try and really broaden the conversation. To those areas. What are your objectives at a business? What are your strategies for achieving them? What are the challenges that are getting in your way of getting that done? In essence, what is your business plan? How are you going about competing in your marketplace?
Outcomes? What are your objectives?
Yeah, who are your competitive threats? And then how do you deploy human capital? To deal with that. How is your recruitment? Your training?
Buzzword bingo.
Yeah, we go.
What's human capital?
People.
Got it.
Talent. That most organizations run on, and how are you, the whole area of, team member acquisition, development, engagement, is a big deal for all businesses that want to be successful and compete effectively. Certainly for us, it is. And so we have this broad conversation, and we often find that people have been trained over the years through the necessary purchase of insurance to think about risk only through what's included on their insurance coverage.
Got it.
And so in broadening the conversation and then coming back in the next meeting and saying, okay, let's confirm what we believe we heard, and see if we heard it right, and confirm that these are issues that you'd like to see us help you deal with. Often it's, we get into a conversation that's away from insurance products, but that, is really central to what they're trying to solve for. And sometimes it's, we know an expert who can do that for you. How about if we connect you with somebody?
Sure.
Sometimes it's something we can help them with ourselves. We like to get into, and I think our clients rely on us often in that role. We know we have really done our job well when our client will call us up and say, "I've got this business problem. Who do you know, or what's your take, or how might we solve for it, unrelated to insurance?"
Well, I'm going to hope that you invite them to join 805connect.com, where we've got those kinds of experts, and we actually ask the question, how could you help the community? What are the skills that you've got that you would freely give, or if you're in the business, you would like a new client? So let's hope that the person who's listening right now thinks, wow, gosh, I had never even thought of my business in that way, and how do I mitigate risk? And I appreciate that, you bringing that to the conversation, and that there's a wealth of expertise in this region that we're only just now in our second year beginning to appreciate how diverse it is. I'm going to go back to something you said in the very beginning. You said you're curious. I'm naturally curious. My whole life I've been curious, which is why I feel like I'm in the perfect position right now. I was born to sit behind this microphone and ask people questions about their lives and their business and their motivation. I'm interested in, I just was listening to Brian Grazer talk. He's with Ron Howard, and he's been curious his whole life and asking people questions. And so I think that's a great note to end on. Let's all continue to be curious. I want to thank you for being a part of the 805 conversation, Greg. I really enjoy our budding friendship here and what you're doing to communicate. Patrick, thank you so much, and Pull String Press.
Yeah, of course.
We appreciate that. For those of you in the 805 Connect, we'd love you to tell a friend about this podcast. Let them know you learned something interesting. It was fascinating conversation. We took insurance and made it, this time, 45 minutes, has just zipped by. And I got to say, it's the longest I've ever spent talking about it. And I'm actually interested in about 3-4 other ideas, because we didn't even get into millennials. We didn't get into incubators and entrepreneurs and all of that. So we'd love to have you back.
I would love to come back. This is, I think you're providing the community, with a terrific resource and service, and thank you for leading that, Patrick. Thank you for participating as well. And it's, again, our pleasure to not only support 805 Connect, but to be part of this. And I'd love to come back and talk more about a broader set of issues that can help people within the 805 succeed in their business.
Greg, thank you. And they can find you by Googling TolmanandWiker.com?
Absolutely. TolmanandWiker.com, 92-year-old firm. We're the largest private independent risk management, benefits consulting, and insurance brokerage firm between LA and Monterey. And we have clients throughout the 805, and we'd be happy to help anyone who might be listening to the podcast.
And when you have events, please let us know so we can get that out to the membership, so we'll get some new people there. So from all of us here at 805 Connect and the 805 Conversations, thank you very much, and we'll look forward to talking to you soon.